Mr. Transformers 96 here with another video review. This time I'm going to be talking about a newly shown Transformers product from the Studio Series, and it's the Constructicons forming Devastator. So very excited about this. We finally have on display images of not only Devastator fully transformed, but the entire Constructicon set all together, so you can really see them together, you can compare the sizes, and just get a good look at the set as a whole. This is very exciting. It's been a long road of kind of them slowly showing these figures and slowly coming out and getting a new piece for Devastator here and there. And now we finally have the last two pieces, and therefore the last two Constructicons, as well as the fully formed Devastator. So let's get into it. Now let's start off with the Constructicons, and then we'll talk about Devastator specifically. But as you can see, here is the Constructicon set. On the left, we have Scrap Metal, Rampage, Mixmaster, Hightower, Scavenger, Long Haul, Scrapper, and Overload. They form a great set. I think that they all look great together. I love the mix of colors between them all, and I think they just look like an awesome set. It would be, fantastic even to just buy, if you're going to buy them all, to keep them in their Constructicon modes because they look super cool on their own. Obviously, though, the fully formed Devastator is so unique in its grandeur that it's hard not to display him as Devastator, though, I will definitely admit. But going over the two kind of newcomers, essentially, we have Scrapper as well as Overload. And starting off with Scrapper, I think that he looks absolutely fantastic, to be honest. Scrapper is one of the Constructicons that's actually seen, in the film. Overload is one that we never actually see fully transform. It's mainly concept art that we know how he looks, in robot mode. But Scrapper, we see very good shots of. He even makes an appearance in Dark of the Moon, of course. But overall, I think this is a really great representation of that character. I think that they've got his form very accurate. He's one of the most humanoid looking of the Constructicons. He looks great. I think the proportions are really well done. The legs look very good. The torso looks very nice. I think the head sculpt looks fantastic. It looks completely accurate. That's one thing that they really nailed, the head sculpts of all the Constructicons. What I'm actually doing is I'm buying two of all of them, and on the ones that I'm making as the Devastator pieces and fully forming Devastator, I'm actually removing their heads, just because you obviously aren't supposed to see their heads on him anyway, and they're all hidden on that mode anyway. So I'm actually just kind of having like a set of their heads because they look super cool. So it's like, why not? They're not even noticeable on them. So I think that just seeing the head sculpts are really cool on all of these Constructicons. And Scrapper here looks great. His left arm, I think, looks fantastic. His right arm is interesting. I like the fact that they've kind of had it transform into that kind of claw area. But I do think that it's a little bulky, a little clunky. Nonetheless, though, I do still think it looks good, and I'm glad it transforms, but it doesn't look as clean as like the left arm. But overall, I think that looks like a fantastic figure. I've always wanted a Scrapper figure, and Scrapper was one that I expected to get in 2009 when the film originally came out, so I was always disappointed that we didn't. So it's great to finally get the figure. Again, I think it looks really awesome. And then Overload, like I mentioned, is one that we actually have never seen in the film. It's concept art as to why we know what he looks like. We've seen his alt mode, but not the robot mode. And I think that he looks very cool. There's been some images of his concept art that gave him like 4 legs, almost like spider legs. But I prefer this look, the 2-legged and 4-armed look. I think it's very cool. The legs, look kind of more thin, and that he has like a really bulky upper half. But they look like they're very secure legs. So it looks like they can support the massive, oversized upper torso and arms and shoulders. And I think that it's a neat design. His face sculpt, I would need a closer shot of it. It's hard to tell exactly what the face sculpt looks like. It looks fine, but I don't know how great the sculpt actually is. But overall, I think it looks very good. The arms look really cool. I like that they're kind of all like little pincher arms. I think they look very neat, almost like he has a gun on his back. He's a very clean-looking robot mode. It looks like there isn't much kibble on him whatsoever. It's all very clean, very smooth, which I definitely like. I think that he looks very cool. And then you can see their robot modes, or excuse me, their vehicle modes at the bottom. They both look very good. The only thing that's a little out of place, but like I totally understand the reason for it, is Overload's alt mode has just like the piece of Devastator's neck just kind of sitting on the back, just kind of chilling up there. I just, purely because they need it to go on his neck. So that's one of those, kind of just piece forming type of things. It's not a big deal. I'd much prefer to have it rather than not have it, just to keep the transformation more clean. So overall, I think that it looks good. And then Overload's just alt mode, I think looks really nice. It's good how flat they've made the back piece look. Obviously, that should be a very clean, flat kind of towing piece, and I think that it looks very good. So it's almost like he's towing that piece of his neck. And yeah, and then the last picture that I have at the very bottom right is just to kind of show that there is essentially another Constructicon coming out. It's Slipjack, who is it's basically lazy Rampage, I'm calling him, because essentially it's just Rampage but yellow, considering Rampage, when he transforms into Devastator in the film, is seen as being yellow because he has the yellow leg, even though Rampage himself is red, and when he has his scene and we fully see Rampage, even after Devastator is fully formed, he's of course red. So that's, I understand why they're doing it. It annoys me a little bit just because I purchased 2 of the red Rampages because I, want a set of Constructicons and then a fully formed Devastator, and now I'm gonna have to buy a third one to get the proper color on Devastator. I would have much preferred just to buy the yellow and the red. That would have been much easier, much better. But it's unfortunate that they've kind of showed him so late in the game. But yeah, so that's a figure that's been rumored for a little bit, but that is fully confirmed now. We don't have any pictures of it in alt mode yet. Apparently, it'll be fully revealed at New York Toy Fair, which is always in February. That should be coming up within the next week or two. So that'll be very exciting. So going back to the Constructicons as a whole, I think that they look like a fantastic set. As far as kind of the smallest compared to the largest, it looks like, even though when I was speaking about Devastator yesterday, I mentioned that it looked like Overload had the most presence on Devastator. He looked like he was probably going to be the biggest Constructicon. Scavenger here, as you can see, does look bigger than him. So what I think mainly is the key here is that the majority of Scavenger, or at least the pieces that really give him a lot of bulk, are his 2 massive wheels, and those are basically just on Devastator's back, so you don't really see them. So I think that even though he's probably the biggest one as a whole, because his pieces are kind of more pushed to the back, you don't really see them as much, and therefore Overload, when you're looking at Devastator straight on, seems to have the biggest presence on him as a whole. But overall, I think that everybody looks really good. As far as the Voyagers, they all seem to be very much in scale with each other. Well, all of them are in scale, but the Voyagers have just about the same amount of bulk from each other. It looks like Rampage is probably the biggest Voyager, but overall, I think that the 4 of them, Scavenger, Lawn Haul, Mixmaster, and Rampage, just look great. As far as the 2 leaders, again, Overload and Scavenger, they both look very good. It's, all of the ones that we've had figures from beforehand, they've updated tremendously, and they look fantastic. And then there's so many that they've made for the first time too. Scrapper, Overload, Hightower, and Scrap Metal, they all look wonderful too. Scrap Metal is probably my least favorite. I'm just not a huge fan of the look of him. I don't even remember much concept art for him at all. And obviously he never transforms in the film, so he's the one that I'm a little on, but the rest of them look spectacular, and as a set, they look super cool. So let's get on to Devastator, the final product that we see on display. The thing looks amazing. It really does look great. I'm very happy with the final product of this. It has a fantastic presence. The face sculpt, I think, is quite accurate. The only thing that I could have wanted is to have some sort of extension piece or some sort of transformable ability in his mouth to be able to give him more of a rounded mouth when he has it open. Just like the original Devastator figure had that whole kind of feature where you pushed down on the lever in his chest, and that raised his head and expanded his mouth and created a circle, which I thought actually looked really good. Because when he does actually do the whole kind of sucking up the sand and the pyramid, he has more of a rounded mouth. While this one, it does open, which is great, but it's not so rounded. So that's the only thing that I could have preferred when it comes to the sculpt of the face. the whole back head assembly, mixed masters pieces, I think look very good. They form a really nice kind of circular cylinder type of effect piece. The extension piece that goes on it from Overload, I think adds a lot to it, and I'm glad that you have some green pieces on it to kind of simulate that kind of light up feature and the kind of grinding motion. I think that's very cool. The chest and the whole body pieces, the two leaders essentially, I think look very nice. I like the fact that they're the exact same color because you really can't see where Overload ends and where Scavenger starts. They mix into each other very nicely. It also looks like Scavenger provides quite a lot of articulation when it comes to the shoulders. You can kind of swing those forward and back, and then of course they'll go up and down and left and right. So I do like the range of motion in the shoulders. This version of Devastator has kind of broader shoulders, which I think is going to look great when he's crouched down. That's one big issue that I have with the figure when it comes to these events, is that none of the people who are putting the event on and actually showing Devastator are posing him correctly. They all have him standing up like a human. A Devastator obviously never does that. He crouches down and basically walks on all fours. So it's disappointing not to see him in the correct pose because he looks a little awkward just standing because he shouldn't be standing. So I think with the correct pose, he'll look perfect. Because the one issue that I have with him proportion wise is that he slims way down when it comes to the waist, and that's clearly so that they can allow clearance for the thighs to be fully rotated up so that you can have him actually crouching down on the floor. So it's great that they left that range there, but when you have him just standing, it looks really awkward because he shouldn't have that range, or excuse me, he shouldn't have that kind of thinned out little waist, but it'll make sense and it'll fill in once you have him actually pose the correct way. So hopefully at Toy Fair they'll have him pose the correct way because he looks so great, so it's a shame to kind of be just doing him wrong as far as how they're positioning him. The arms look very good. As you can see, the two deluxes form an actual larger arm, which I'm kind of surprised about. I figured that they'd be about the same. I mean, you do get some more bulk when it comes to Scavenger, the Voyager on the right arm, which is nice, but you get a longer arm when it comes to his left one, having the two deluxes, especially with the longer fingers. And I kind of like the mix of proportions there. Devastator is very clunky looking in the film. Obviously in the original 80s show, he was, relatively clean looking. There was different parts on him, but they all had about the same proportions. But in the film, he looks very awkward in his structure, and therefore I like that kind of represented here in the arms, with one side being a lot longer than the other. And then the legs, of course, I think do look very nice. I think that they're structured really well. I'm surprised how much of the leg is formed by Overload. I didn't expect that. But as you can see, he not only forms like the upper thighs, but then he also has pieces that come down to add some extra bulk onto the legs, which also adds some red onto the legs, which I think does look quite good. Now, clearly they have the Rampage, the original Rampage on him, which is the red leg, which you can absolutely use. However, there is that additional, figure coming out that I mentioned, Slipjack, which will be the same exact figure, just yellow. So, and then yellow, of course, is the accurate color to be on Devastator here. Overall, though, I think this piece looks amazing. I'm incredibly excited to fully build him and to get the whole thing. Hopefully the last two pieces don't take too long to come out. They're estimated to be released in fall. I'd love for them to be released, early, though. Maybe August. August would be great. That would be a really nice release date, not too far away. So hopefully we'll get these last pieces sooner than later. I'm sure I'll be making an update if they do have them on display at New York Toy Fair, if they have them correctly posed, and if they have them with the correct colored leg with a Slipjack instead of Rampage. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some updates. But overall, this is looking fantastic. It's taken a long time for it to kind of be fully complete and to get an actual accurate look at it. But I think the final product is really fantastic. And taking a look at the whole set, where is it? Here we go. Here's the full display that they have, going on at this event. As you can see, you can get everything compared to each other in the nice kind of Egyptian background. And he is spectacularly huge. He looks awesome. Really massive, when you are formed of how many figures form him? 8 figures, so 8 figures form him, which is just huge. It's a massive piece by itself. If you want just Devastator and you're just going for Devastator, it is an expensive set. It's going to be $260 to buy all of the individual pieces if you buy them all on retail price. So it's very expensive to fully form Devastator. However, the final product is spectacular, and even just the Constructicons on their own are spectacular as well, in my opinion. I think they look like a great set. But there you go. That's my thoughts on the new figures shown, being Scrapper and Overload, and how they compare with the entire Constructicon set, as well as the final product of Devastator fully formed and on display. Let me know what you guys think of this figure, and thanks so much for watching.